Well, China is Germany's third biggest trading partner after States and France. In 2018, the trade volume between the two nations was over $220 billion and was over $100 billion in the first half of 2019. However, both countries are feeling the weight of US tariffs. German auto giants like BMW, Daimler and Volkswagen earn around a third of their revenue in China, where sales have dropped recently due to trade tensions and a slowing global economy. However, several big German firms, including Airbus, AVIC and Insurer Alliance, are looking to bolster ties with Beijing, having signed deals during this visit by Merkel. Well, let's chat more about the significance of Merkel's visit and the state of both economies. Klaus Larres, Professor of History and International Affairs at the University of North Carolina, joins me now from Chapel Hill. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
So let's start with Chancellor Merkel's goals for this meeting, especially with signs of a looming recession in Germany.
Yes, of course, the relationship between Germany and China, as you said, is highly important, and it is actually growing. The importance in both exports and investments on both sides has expanded. The relationship has expanded. And so it's important, particularly now that the Germans find themselves in probably a recession pretty soon, that also the Chinese economy is slightly going back. And so the relationship between both countries is very important. And that is clearly a sign why so many business leaders have joined Angela Merkel on this trip. At the same time, it's a very complex situation. Both countries are close cooperators, and they cooperate closely, but they're also, of course, economic and technological rivals. And they both compete for market share and development share in certain industries, like industrial, artificial intelligence, robotics, driverless cars. And ever since China developed its industrial plan 2025, the Germans have become a little scared and feel they may lose out. And they try to, of course, compete with China in the development of these new technologies. And that shapes the relationship, both cooperation, close cooperation, but also rivalry and competition.
So given the two directions that both China and Germany are taking in the sort of futures that they're hoping to forge for their countries, what do they have to benefit from having closer ties with each other? And of course, by extension, in China's case, with the EU as well?
Yes, I mean, in the trade war, which is looming at the moment between the United States and China, China is looking for friends and allies, quite understandably. And of course, it wants to find some of these friends in Europe, particularly Germany. And the Germans have to be careful from their point of view that they don't get sandwiched between the United States and China. They want to keep out of that battle between the two superpowers, if you like. And that is problematic for Angela Merkel, and she really has to try to often be has a balancing role between the two countries. But both China and Germany benefit from cooperation in, for example, the development of a new Airbus plane in China. The A320 is in China's future. Also, there was an agreement between the German postal office and a Chinese car company to develop an electric van in China. And these are projects for the future, which will be beneficial for both countries.
Now, Klaus, China is the world's largest exporter of goods and services, followed by the US, and then, of course, Germany. But with such reliance on each other's markets, what sort of contagion is Germany seeing from the US-China trade war?
It is affected by the trade war. As I said, the German economy has contracted a little bit during the last quarter and is expected to contract further during the next or this quarter and maybe in recession soon. So the trade war is having repercussions on the rest of the world, including Europe. And that is, of course, one reason why Angela Merkel is very interested in expanding trade and investment relations with China. And vice versa, I think the Chinese economy is also affected by the trade war, and the Chinese also wish to intensify their relations with Europe, and here in particular with Germany.
Now, outside of trade, what are some of the other important aspects of the China-Germany relationship?
They cooperate increasingly in other countries. They cooperate in Africa. They cooperate regarding the Iranian nuclear deal, which both countries support and want to continue. But Angela Merkel was also under pressure to say something about the developing situation in Hong Kong. And she, of course, has to tread very carefully here. She doesn't want to interfere in China's domestic relations, but she also wants to uphold Western values. And she called for the use of no violence in order to resolve resolve that conflict. So she was also under domestic pressure in Germany to say something about the developing situation in Hong Kong. And she did so at a press conference. And I think everyone expects that she also raised these problems and other human rights problems in private conversations with both Xi Jinping and the Chinese Prime Minister.
And just quickly, we know that Angela Merkel will be stepping down in 2021. So as you look ahead at this relationship and they sort of settle that strategic partnership and competition, what should we be keeping an eye on in the coming years?
Both countries want to develop their economic relationship, but they also increasingly view each other as competitors. And there are still problems like the lack of market access, which the European and German governments see as problematic. There is still intellectual property theft, an issue which concerns Western business leaders. And German business leaders in particular are also concerned about the social credit system in China, which will also affect international businesses. And they, of course, don't know how that is shaping up, what will be the outcome, but they are concerned. And these are problems which need to be addressed. And I'm sure Angela Merkel addressed some, if not all of these problems in private conversation, but also partially in public conversations with the Chinese leaders. And I think the Germans still have quite a bit of influence in China. Right. And Angela Merkel is still a very respected leader. And I think so the relationship definitely benefits from Angela Merkel still being at the helm, because she has immense experience in dealing with China, and over 14 years as Chancellor, she has built up really a good reservoir of goodwill in China.
All right, thank you so much for your insights. Klaus Larres there, Professor of History and International Affairs at the University of North Carolina.